Hey, welcome to this shortwave radio channel, and in my top 10 favorite portable receivers that I own, well, the CountyComm GP5 SSB. This is also known as the Tecsun PL-365. They are the same radio. And the CountyComm, from what I've seen, I've seen a few places that they say it's actually discontinued. So I don't know if they're still making it as a CountyComm version. But the GP5 SSB is also known as the Tecsun PL-365. That is available on eBay for roughly $70 to $80. It is interesting form factor, actually. I kind of like the form factor. It's kind of nice, nice display also. So this is a long wave, medium wave, short wave, and FM with FM stereo through the earpiece. It's a general coverage receiver. That means it goes all the way up to 29,999 kilohertz. So you can tune around everywhere. Separate USB and LSB tuning. That means that you actually tune in to upper or lower sideband separately. And this is a nice add because it does make tuning of single sideband signals easier when you have a separate upper lower sideband capability. It has a BFO fine tuning also, which is nice, so it actually lets you offset the tuning of any SSB signals when you're trying to tune around. So that also is nice. It's a nice digital BFO, which is easy to know where it's centered because you see it at 0 here, at 0 beat. And it really adds to a cool way of tuning around, honestly, on the shortwave bands. Now, memory channels in here. You'll see there's a negative to it, and you'll need to use them because there's a flaw in this radio, and it's the lack of a keypad. So what I do is these memory channels to keep the frequencies so that you can actually tune faster around the different frequency ranges that you want. It is a DSP PLL receiver, so it actually uses the silicon integrated digital signal processing chip. And it is a phase lock loop receiver. That means very stable, very good. I did notice that in very strong signals, in single sideband, there's a little wobble in the audio, but it's not enough to really be annoying or prevent you from really listening in to single sideband signals. It has a nice display, of course, and that display, of course, works with a signal to noise ratio, signal indicator. You also can, in the display, have the alarm, the temperature, or the clock displayed, which is a very nice feature, of course. Separate clock or, signal to noise ratio indication at the same time as frequency. That's always fun. It comes with an external ferrite antenna, or ferrite, which is a high sensitivity AM antenna, they call this, that you plug at the top of the receiver. It's really nice also because it adds the medium wave AM radio DXing kind of a plus, because you can plug that at the top and actually swivel it to have the best reception. It works well and receives really well actually as an antenna. And the nice part about this also is that because the antenna jack for the AM antenna here at the top, you might want to use something like the Tecsun AM200 loop that I have, that will greatly improve reception and can be plugged in directly into the radio, which is really cool. Of course, there's a headphone jack on the top. It lets you listen to FM stereo, and this is nice. Radio uses 3 AA batteries. There's a negative to that also that I'll talk about, and can be charged with the DCN using a PC USB cable. If you wish to keep your batteries charged, you can actually plug it to a computer or one of those little phone power supplies that will also supply 5 volts to actually make the charge. It has ETM, easy tuning mode. This easy tuning mode capability that I love, and I told you that I really love it, is a capability of tuning around the international broadcast bands and finding signals. Well, on this receiver, I talked about it on the PL-380 on a previous video. Well, on this one, it's better than on the PL-380 from Tecsun. It's faster and it's more sensitive. It actually will lock on to more signals. So it's a great add-on feature. and somewhat compensates the lack of a keypad, because if you don't want to tune around and search your signals and just let it scan to see what's on, you can use the ETM mode. And basically, you know, most of the time what I do is I use the easy tuning mode on this radio a lot, because it's easier for me to find stations than to start going around with without the keypad stuff. It is great sensitivity on AM, on FM, on shortwave. Overall is really, really nice, and it's got an interesting form factor in its size and the way that it's built. What is bad about this radio? Okay, let's start with what is one of the biggest flaws. Battery drain. I know you were thinking, oh, the keypad. No, there's battery drain. When you shut down the radio, when you actually turn it off, you know, most receivers, the only current that goes through is just a very, very small current to keep the clock, for example. And usually you turn off a radio and you use it again, you know, 2 weeks later, and the batteries are still good. Well, on this radio, if you are using alkaline batteries, remove them from the radio when you don't use it. It drains a lot of power when it's shut off, and I don't really know why. There's something awkward about the way it's designed. So that means that if you don't use the radio for a month, well, you'll have the surprise of having dead batteries in it, and you'll need to change the batteries or recharge them. So that is a big flaw for a radio, and it is something that you might want to consider when you actually get one. But if you use rechargeables, or if you know, I've gotten the habit now of keeping rechargeables, and I do have a lot of rechargeables that I can use, so I don't really care that much. But you know, if you have only a couple of sets of rechargeables, or if you're using alkaline batteries, don't forget to remove them from the radio, or else you're going to drain the batteries. One of the bad things, if you remove the batteries and the current that's left isn't long enough, the display goes blank, you're losing the memories. That's also a weird and awkward thing, because most radios keep them in a non-volatile memory. This one, if you remove the batteries, you lose the memories. So maybe that explains part of the battery drain, basically. The digital signal processing in it has a weird effect when the signals fade in and out. It's typical of all these little portables using the DSP chip from Silicon Integrateds. And it's, you know, sometimes a little weird when there's fading in and out, but, you know, it's not that bad. Spurious signals on the lower bands a lot when you use a long wire. So when you use ETM, for example, if I plug this on the sloper, I'll get some local AM stations kind of overloading the bottom part, like 2 megahertz to, you know, 2500, 2600 kilohertz, and the first ETM scans, for example. And it does that even with the telescopic sometimes when you have strong AM signals, and even when this is not plugged in, it does it. So there's some overloading going on. Overall, it still makes my list of my top 10 favorite radios because of many of its features. But it is really, really a nice radio still to have, and I like the ETM. Easy tuning mode is great. And last but not least, in the bad stuff, no keypad makes tuning of this radio a really frustrating experience. I mean, if you're here and you want to tune in to 27025 to see the 11 meter CB Super Bowl channel, if you haven't put in the memory channels, well, you gotta start with the up-down buttons. And so first of all, let's remove myself from the ATM here. Here we go. So you will want to, so I use the up-down buttons to go to the banks, but now we're at 26,000. So you have to start tuning up manually, or sometimes you can actually have the scan going on and continue up in the scan. But the problem is, depending on the frequency range you are at, it doesn't work well all the time. So sometimes you're stuck tuning around manually with this button here. And I can tell you, you want to get to 27025, you're gonna take the time to do it because it's darn long. Sometimes you can use the scan functionalities, but the problem with the scan functionalities is that it's not always something that you can use. Sometimes it will scan through the outer bands and be okay, Sometimes they'll just jump to an international broadcast band of some sort, and you're like, no, okay, now you're too far. That's not where I want to be. But they did compensate some of the things. So for example, when you are on AM mode, you do have international broadcast bands. If you are in the single sideband mode, it actually ups or downs into the amateur bands, which is a nice little feature here. But overall, even with its flaws and a lack of keypad, it's making my top 10 because of the ETM feature, its high sensitivity, and the fact that it has this little external ferret that makes the experience still an interesting one. So 70 to 80 bucks, you will get it in the form of a Tecsun PL-365, which is the same radio, if you need or want to have one of these. If you enjoy my videos and my top 10s, please subscribe, give us thumbs up. Thanks for watching.